20,000 migrants just entered America as Canada border opens.
A self-proclaimed smuggler says the world's longest border, which separates the U.S. from Canada, offers more than 5,500 miles of opportunity.
So as the...
What? What?
The U.S. southern border continues to see mass troop deployments from both the U.S. and Mexico. Those wishing to illegally enter our country need a new way in. And it appears gangs and smugglers are finding paths through the frozen rivers, fields, and...
What the fuck, Canada? It's okay, guys. We're gonna build another wall. This time, Canada's gonna pay for it.
And mountains along the largest land border in the world, which not only has zero border wall, but is also now being exploited by criminals advertising on TikTok, of all places.
The request for a smuggler starts on the black market, but it's also easy to find one using social media platforms.
There were nearly 24,000 illegal crossings along the U.S. Canada border between October 2023 and September 2024. The bulk of them along this small stretch between Ontario, Quebec, and 3 U.S. states.
Over the Mexican border, we've encountered about 500 people on the terror watch list. On the northern border, Canada and the United States, it's 1,000. So we have a huge problem here.
A member of Sinaloa claims the price for each person is $3,000. He keeps $1,000, the cartel gets $500, and the rest covers the trip.
Enforcement Directorate says that it has uncovered a massive criminal network that spans across continents. It consists, they say, of thousands of agents, and their modus operandi has been to get Indians across to Canada on student visas. Now, these students would never attend the colleges they were supposed to and would then illegally cross over into the U.S.
In response, the Canadian government has increased border security, committing more than $1 billion to deploy helicopters, drones, and Royal Canadian Mounted Police on the ground.
Canada. Thank you. But do better.
So this is real. Criminals are using TikTok to show people how easily they can cross the U.S.-Canada border.
Oh,
and what
my
nobody's
goodness.
talking about is that as the U.S. southern border continues to lock down, all of the criminals down there are just gonna switch borders and come up north instead. And as they do this, they're luring people into their criminal networks with videos like these that successfully show them bringing people into America, walking across sometimes frozen...
You know what, to be honest though, Texas is probably like, finally, now you guys can know what we were talking about the entire time.
In rivers, streams, fields, and mountainous terrain, conditions which are the polar opposite of those at the U.S. Mexico border, which is now on lockdown due to mass deployments of active duty U.S. troops. But although the Canadian border remains open by comparison, crossing it is not only difficult, but also very expensive. Because to get to Canada, you've got to pay money to fly there, and then to illegally enter America, you've got to give more money to the same gangs and criminals who are already working the U.S.-Mexico border. That's right, the same criminals down south are also up north. And over the past 4 years, they've been finding secret entry points along the 5,500 miles connecting the U.S. and Canada. Entry points America and its newly motivated border partner are desperately trying to track down and close. Which brings us to the real reason that hasn't happened yet and why northern border crossings are still going on. There's just too much space between the U.S. and Canada to lock down completely. Plus, critics say Canada's efforts reveal they aren't as serious about stopping.
Guys, I have a perfect solution for this. We make Canada a state, and then we control the whole thing. God bless America, and no place else.
Illegal immigration as America is, and are only now spending money on their border because of the looming threat of tariffs, a threat proponents say is necessary to stop the flow.
That's from a movie. Which movie? What movie is that from again? That's from a movie, right? God bless America and no place else. Where's that? Where's that from? I remember hearing that somewhere.
Of unknown criminals and dangerous individuals who are literally just walking across.
No, it wasn't the White House. It was hold on. Who said that? God bless America and no place else. Oh, it was. Yeah, you're right. It was. You're right. It was the Chris Rock movie.
Guarded border, like
It was that movie. That's amazing.
This.
Hard to say how many people actually have come across. And they've caught 13,000.
You said it was a bad idea, and they would.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I'm memeing. I'm just joking. Mikichi, I'm just joking.
That's what the Border Patrol have apprehended. You have no control over it. You don't know who these people are.
The goal for criminals.
See how easy that was, guys? How easy was that? I was just joking. It was a joke, an out of character joke.
Is
so
for
easy.
that
Not
to
easy.
start
It's so
happening
easy.
more and more often. Because with crossings down 95% at the southern border from a year ago, the northern border is the only option left. And even though the millions who've illegally crossed the U.S. Mexico border greatly outnumber the 23,000 encounters we've had along the northern border, as you're about to see, the people coming in from Canada's side are much more dangerous.
In the last 4 years, over the Mexican border, we've been.
I mean, true, because like, let's be real, they must have higher stats because they're coming through like the frozen wasteland, and that's always the higher level area, unless you play a dwarf. But usually it's the higher level area. It's usually like end game content in the snow. So if they're coming through the snow, they're already higher level than the ones from the south.
Counted about 500 people on the terror watch list. On the northern border, Canada and the United States, it's 1,000. So
that's crazy. So last year, the southern border had 10 times the number of encounters as the northern border overall. But the people coming across the northern border were 2 times as likely to be on some sort of government watch list. And of course, this is a huge problem, but it makes sense when you realize just how unguarded and neglected the largest land border in the world is. You've got 5,500 miles of terrain with no wall. And although the conditions can be incredibly dangerous during the wintertime, that means nothing to the most dangerous people in the world.
They should just release more bears, I think. It's kind of like, you know how like when there's a problem with some kind of issue, you usually like release like some kind of predator into the area that like helps control that. If we released more bears, it would help control that as well. It would control the border a little bit better.
Only have
dire wolves. Yeah, dire wolves. We should get on that with dire wolves.
One mission in mind.
In fact, like you could take it a step further and do dire bears as well.
But if these people are this dangerous, how is it that they're able to get on a plane and fly into Canada to begin with?
Canada's immigration system is so lax, they're not looking into them. And when the Canadian government's own audit, Canadian government says, of the people our security services flagged, Canada let in 50% of them. So it's not a good deal up there, man.
That right there sets up 2 very frightening aspects to this story. But in order to understand what those are, you've got to realize most Americans, myself included, wrongfully have had this idea that Canada's just like our country, only colder, which is completely false. And they've got an immigration and security system totally different than ours. And for years, they've let people into their country from places the U.S. is watching close.
Well, see, the problem is Canada. Okay, so the problem with this is Canada is going to have to fix this. Otherwise, we're going to close our border to Canada. It's going to be very similar to how it is in Mexico, and it's going to be a lot harder to like get across, which is going to be really bad for, I guess, citizens from both countries. Because right now we're kind of like the border and the north border is kind of like whatever. Like people don't really give a shit, but people are going to take it a lot more seriously if like this is the case, and that's bad for. It's honestly probably more bad for Canada than it is for the United States. Probably. I just thought of that right now. I don't know why. Just my gut feeling is that it's going to be worse for Canada than it is for the United States.
And those people who are...
I could look into it later, but that's what I think. I feel that.
Are incredibly unpredictable and dangerous. They're also the folks advertising on TikTok to attract new clients. For gang-related smuggling activities, most people in America have no idea even exist.
A self-proclaimed smuggler says the world's longest border, which separates the U.S. from Canada, offers more than 5,500 miles of opportunity. The cartel has been one of Mexico's largest crime groups since the 1980s. Javi, a member of Sinaloa, claims the price for each person is $3,000.
So these are the guys out there using apps like TikTok to make these videos that show off how they sneak people into America through the Canadian border. And they claim to be working for one of the largest cartels in Mexico, Sinaloa. And apparently they've got videos like this where they show off how easy it is to do what they do because of Canada's lax immigration laws. But here's the thing, these videos invariably attract a higher end of client than they'd find down south. Because people who've got internet access and the ability to afford a plane ticket, they're gonna have more money to pay smugglers and gangs than those who don't. But now the question is, how did we get to a place where the same cartels that were running the southern border are now also running the northern border as well?
One of the reasons is when Trudeau came in, he suspended visas for Mexicans. You can come in without a visa to Canada. You can't come into the United States without a visa from Mexico. So what did the cartels do? They flew in, they set up shop. Hey,
well, easy. All we should do is just make the border even harder on the north, basically.
I
guess that is harder though because never mind. That is harder because there's more land. There's more land.
Much easier.
That's crazy. Canada essentially opened its doors to Mexico where there are known criminals who might try to exploit their border, and they did it without any requirements whatsoever.
Canada, what the fuck? What the fuck? We had a deal.
Now, this has changed. About a year ago, Canada started requiring visas for people from Mexico. But experts say it may already be too late, as there's already a critical mass of criminals in their country.
Bears. Bears is the only solution. More bears.
Here we have
we need to get the ones from Alaska, the blue bears. We need to get blue bears, breed blue bears, and then release them all over up there. Blue bears are the super fucked up bears. Those are the really, really fucked up ones. That's the one you don't want to fuck with, is the blue bear. It's a mix between a grizzly bear and a polar bear. It's a hybrid between the two. Blue bear. We get a bunch of those suckers, and then we put them all over the border.
Photo of a guy advertising smuggling services. Look at this. He says, Montreal to New York, same-day entry, 100% safe. Here's another one bragging about people just getting in and talking about how people don't even have to pay.
Yeah, it's a cross between a polar bear and a grizzly bear. It's really rare. But I think we have the science, especially with like the new tech that we have, like that we got like dire wolves. Like surely we could get blue bears with that same tech. We breed a bunch of them, release them on the Canada border.
Until it's successful. In this picture, you have 8 people at $5,000 each. That's $40,000. But that's just the money that goes to the smugglers for bringing people from point A to point B.
CBS News says a request for a smuggler starts on the black market, but it's also easy to find one using social media platforms.
What I would do if I was Trump, I would enact a policy where I basically make it so that we won't sell potatoes anymore to Canada. So they won't be able to make poutine. And then that will basically, like, at that point, they'll negotiate.
Javi said no matter what the U.S. or Canada does, it won't stop cartels like Sinaloa from their operations.
They will fold immediately. Yes,
so criminals
exactly.
say this is working, but the fact that it's working opens up another angle to this that most people don't even know about. And it has to do with who's coming in and why they're coming in. And as you're about to see, these folks are spending a lot more than just $5,000 to accomplish this. It says right here, Indian nationals made up almost a quarter of those apprehended crossing into the United States illegally, and that they are the largest group coming across this way. And look at this, apparently they enter Canada on student visas, and 50,000 people did this last year, but apparently never showed up to school, which means they're probably doing something worse than skipping class.
A massive criminal network that spans across continents. It consists, they say, of thousands of agents, some 262 Canadian colleges, and it all links back to 2 Indian entities. And their modus operandi has been to get Indians across to Canada on student visas. Now, these students would never attend the colleges they were supposed to and would then illegally cross over into the U.S. Now,
That's crazy. You've got tens of thousands of people entering a country for a purpose that is not legitimate. And the colleges are behind this. Because it's impossible for people at these schools to have records of all these visas that they issued to people who never appeared on campus. Here we have one smuggler who admitted to bringing over 500 people into the United States this way. And apparently
what they should do there is they should just basically make it like cut off all of that until India figures it out. That's what they should do.
People would pay these smugglers off.
That's what they should do, because they don't owe them to like be able to study in Canada. At least, you know, I'm not Canadian, so I can't really like you know, this is up to Canadians to do. But just my take on it is that they should just make this not a thing until India cleans up their shit, because they're under no obligation to allow Indian students to go into the country and study.
$100,000 to get them from India into the United States, where they would then work off their debts at low wage jobs in cities around the country. This is terrible. And this is such a big story that it should have been a top story all across the media in this country, but it wasn't for some reason.
So many tens of thousands of people have used this route to illegally cross into the US, and most of these people pay about $60,000 to $70,000 to make this journey. They say that their probe is continuing. They haven't named the Canadian colleges who might be allegedly involved in this.
How on earth could this be happening without the knowledge of anybody? Of course people know, but there's so much money.
I can answer that really, really easily. It's incompetence. It's because the government sucks at everything. And Canada is another government. So it doesn't really matter if it's America or if it's Canada or any country, really. The government sucks at everything all the time.
At stake, those people are probably on the take, and they're keeping quiet because they're getting rich off of this.
The only thing that they're good at is giving money to people that like to make wars so that they can make even more money. That's the only thing that they're good at.
Frighteningly, this unveils a level of corruption, which is just a couple steps down from state-sponsored corruption. You've got people working at colleges in Canada, exploiting that country's immigration system while cooperating with some of the worst criminals on the entire planet who do not want that border to ever shut down, which is probably why it's still open. But what's fascinating is these smugglers who post these TikTok videos, they're now getting customers who want help getting out of America because of President Trump.
Migrants are choosing to go to Canada, either asking for help to leave
What?
the U.S. or heading north out of fear of the Trump administration. His narrative mirrors what President Trump claims is the reason for the 25% tariffs on Canadian exports.
Did Trump do it? Are they doing a thing where, like, if you get caught, then you're banned? You're like freaking, you're perma-banned? Are they doing that? You get caught, you're perma-banned? Please do that.
Since taking office, Trump has pressured Canada to tighten border security.
I mean, at this point, with what we know about this, these tariffs, this looks totally justified. Obviously, people in Canada know that there's a mass migration problem going on at the U.S. southern border with Mexico, and then they open up their country to allow people from Mexico to fly there with no visa requirement whatsoever. Of course, criminals were going to take advantage of this. And then we find out that they've got this student visa scam going on with a whole bunch of colleges involving tens of thousands of people who come here, get their visa stamped, and then hand over their tuition to these TikTok gang members who've created a new business with the help of a foreign government, which is apparently still thriving, even though a whole bunch of these accounts got recently banned from sites like TikTok. Unfortunately, if you do some digging, you can still find these.
Yeah, that's hard though. It's really hard to catch all of them. So yeah, if you tried hard, you could probably find some.
Videos. They're still out there, they're still being posted, and this is something that these social media sites probably can never get rid of. Here you've got basically a guy advertising his ability to bring people from Canada to New York City, posting videos like this that show a whole bunch of people walking down a path and then getting into the back of a truck that drives them away and takes them somewhere. And what's also unbelievable is I found out when researching this that sometimes these smugglers don't even accompany their clients across the border. Some just sit back and tell people where to go, monitoring their location through GPS because everybody's got a cell phone. And the smuggler just tells people, turn left, turn right, there's a river, go here. That's what they're doing. And the goal is to get people to a place where they can either get picked up by something like a truck driven by one of their colleagues, or as a local news investigation here figured out, a bus terminal in upstate New York that takes people directly into the heart of Manhattan, picking them up at a gas station just walking distance from the Canadian border, which is incredibly dangerous to cross on foot, especially during the winter.
In response, the Canadian government has increased border security, committing more than $1 billion to deploy helicopters, drones, and Royal Canadian Mounted Police on the ground. Canada has agreed to strengthen security at the northern border, even though U.S. Customs and Border Protection...
They really love those mounted police in Canada, huh? That's like so Canadian.
...recorded 23,000 migrant encounters.
Right, but they have to do that because we've found way more people who are on government watch lists coming across this border than the southern border. But here's the thing, as this crackdown becomes more intense, you're probably gonna have more gang members and smugglers resorting to this remote style of navigation because they don't want to get captured and deported or possibly sent to that El Salvador mega prison. And with people willing to pay tens of thousands of dollars to enter Canada as students who actually plan on coming to America, there's a lot of money on the line, which is pulling in all of these various interests who are getting paid because of America's border. And as long as the border remains open in some capacity, the incentive for this is going to continue. You're gonna have people at these...
With this kind of shit going on, how are we not under attack? I'm the only one that... I'm not the only one that thinks that, obviously. I think Trump says that too. But it's so obvious. Like...
colleges, stamping paperwork, letting...
Even if it's not like a specific place, there's a bunch of people invading us, like literally invading us. Like, how is this not a priority? Well, I mean, it is now, but like before it wasn't, right?
People come in who they're never gonna see or meet. And you could have various travel policies like a zero visa requirement that almost seem deliberately designed to circumvent American immigration policies.
Yep.
What do you think about that? Is there pressure on Canada's border with our country to keep it open? Will it ever close? It's 5,500 miles, that's a lot. What do you need to do to shut it down? Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.
A self-proclaimed...
Man, that's rough. I don't know. That's you gotta discourage it somehow. Whether that's permabans, prison, there has to be consequences for this, otherwise it will keep happening. I'll tell you what, if you have this situation where you put freaking turrets on the border and anyone, I'm not advocating that we should do this, don't be stupid, but if anybody walked across the border, they got instantly shot by turrets, people would stop going across. My point behind this is that there should be consequences and that will prevent it. I'm not saying that the consequence should be we shoot them, but I'm saying that there's probably some level of consequence that would prevent or at least drastically lower the amount of people that go across the border. That's really the problem, is it all comes down to consequences. Litter the ground with landmines. Oh, there's too many externalities that could happen with that, Delphi. At least they would have the Canadian healthcare after being shot. No, it needs to be consequence and accountability. Yeah, like something like Poland. Yeah, Poland is crazy when it comes to this. I like that. A former leader of AFD got into trouble for actually saying that they should shoot. He got into trouble for actually saying that. I'm trying to think about it. So it's like, okay. So on one hand, they are literally invading. On the other hand, what are the externalities that could happen? Like someone could accidentally get shot. There could be people that are like just kind of, I feel like it would really depend on the rules of engagement, because I feel like innocent people will get caught up in that. There has to be some sort of consequence. I don't know what it is. Maybe jail. Maybe, I don't know, but jail, we have to pay for that. Maybe, you know, honestly, I think you guys are right. I think we need to just like, we just need to commission El Salvador. Maybe we just send them all to El Salvador. Do we pay, we pay them for it? That would be cheaper. The innocent, no, I'm not, when I say innocent people, I don't mean human traffickers. So you have to think about like the situations of like people that live on the, like, that live near the border, and possibly they might like go across the border, and then like, there might be issues with that. There's a lot of cases in which I could imagine somebody would cross the border without any sort of ill intent, is what I mean. That could be why. I mean, that's one thing I'm thinking about, right? And also, like, what about, like, I guess children or people that are, like, you know, being trafficked? You don't want to, like, friendly them either. It's kind of rough, man. Poland has a wall border guard with automatic weapons and starts laying personal mines across the... Holy crap. You guys did mines? Wait, are you serious, Levitt? No way. You guys are doing mines? Poland landmines border. Poland signals plans to withdraw from the landmines treaty to turn the eastern border into a minefield. Oh my god. Holy crap. Then again, like, it's like I said, like, there could be innocent people that get caught. I don't know, man. I don't know what the solution is. It's rough. Really, you just have to crack down on it. Like, there has to be some kind of consequences. That's really the bottom line. Because if there's no consequences, there's no incentive to, like, there's no incentive to stop doing this.